So good morning again, everyone. So let's continue with the assumptions. So again, there are no, gas particles are in constant random motion. Collision between gas particles or on the walls of the containers are perfectly elastic. That is, no energy of motion or kinetic energy is lost. The kinetic energy of the particles depends on the temperature of the gas. So their speed depends on the temperature. And then their speed, the pressure also depends. So in ideal gas will not change their phase when there is a change of pressure and temperature. While real gases changes to liquid or solid if the temperature changes. So what are these four fundamental properties of gases? The first property is what we call the pressure. So the outward push on a surface or the force applied per unit area. So we determine the the pressure by calculating force divided by area.
Area.
So we have different units for force. We have the Pascal, which is the SI unit for pressure. The atmosphere, even though
Ano ba?
Pascal
Mapugtod
is the
yun ito.
SI unit, even though Pascal is the SI unit, most of the calculations uses ATM or atmosphere. So the unit of pressure is mostly expressed in ATM. We also have millimeter of mercury, which is the unit for barometer. The barometer is the instrument we use to measure atmospheric pressure. Then the torr. So when we say standard atmospheric pressure, it is a measure of the force on the surface based on the weight of the air above the surface. Now, which has a higher atmospheric pressure? Um, Above sea level or below sea level?
Above,
Which has a higher pressure? Above sea level
Below.
or below sea level? Yes, below
below.
sea level. Kung below sea level siya, napag siya sa ubos. So the amount of air above it is greater than that of the places above sea level. So imagine you are in the dagat, for example, and then you are on top of Mount Everest, which has a higher pressure. On the dagat or on top of the Mount Everest? Higher pressure. On the dagat or on top of Mount Everest? Which has more air above them?
On top of
Up. Okay, more air.
Okay, let's draw so that you can imagine. Share. So, we have here the dagat. And then, there's the plain. And then, there's the mountain. Now, you have here you standing. Charot. You have here you swimming.
Wow.
Sana
all stick man, ma'am.
na-swimming siya. Now, which one is exposed to a higher atmospheric pressure? The
Nasa
swimmer
ubos.
or the climber?
Swimmer.
Very good. Because if you measure the amount of air in here, we have bigger space. So it means air has a bigger space to occupy. So meaning there are more air here compare here. So kagamay ra man yung space. So gamay ra po na
Ma'am, na ako na, ma'am. Basta na ka sa Mount Everest, ma'am. Kay hangin, jigay, dagan, jigay hangin.
Oh, very good. Unsaon. So, the amount of air here that pushes you downward, mo na gitawag, di ba? Di ba we have the gravitational force here? We have the weight, the gravitational force. So all of them has masses, so all of them has weight. And that pushes you downward. We call that force they exert as the atmospheric pressure. So the more air, the higher is the atmospheric pressure. So comparing the swimmer and the climber, the swimmer is much more exposed to higher pressure compared to the climber. So,
Climber.
what if nasa diri sa ilalom? Nasa diri nag-swim.
Wala.
Nag-swim
Wala
siya
kayo
diri.
siya ano.
Water pressure
Asay
na yung
mas
kuan,
dako.
na air.
Okay. Mo shrink ang imong lungs. Di ba ang diver, limited lang ang kalalumon sa ilang pag-swim. That is because their lungs might shrink. So, tungod sa
Wala ka.
compression, tungod
May
sa
naman
higher
pressure dito.
pressure. So, nasabtan?
Ma'am.
Yes. Sir.
Okay.
Ma'am, yes,
So, ako
ma'am.
sa siyang i-undo. So, nasabtan nga nung mas higher ang pressure when you are on a lower area.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am.
Nasabtan ang concept sa atmospheric pressure.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So again, the atmospheric pressure is the pressure exerted by the air towards the object. So muna atmospheric pressure. The standard atmospheric pressure has a value of 1 atm. So muna yung conversion factor. 1 atm is equal to 1,325 Pascal and is equal to 760 millimeter of mercury, or that is equal to 760 torr. The second property gas is the volume. This refers to the amount of space occupied by the gas. So, the unit for volume is liter and its derivatives. Kung tag derivatives, this includes katong ato ang mga multiplier, milli, centi, kilo. Then we have the cubic. Actually, the SI unit for volume is cubic meter. Mo na iyahang SI unit. But most of the time, we do not use that because that is a very large amount of volume. We just focus on liter. So, even though kaniyang SI unit, we use the letter. Parehas sa kwan. Huy, kinsa na rin nagsigit-sagit. So, parehas siya sa pressure, even though Pascal is the SI unit, but most of the time in our calculations, we use ATM. Next, temperature. Temperature measures how hot or how cold a matter is. So say for example, if your boyfriend or your girlfriend is getting cold,
Ayan.
hala, pansakig temperature para makabalo kag mangbulag na ba mo or mo fight pa ka. Ano man siya.
Dave, ma'am, si Dave.
Oh. So kanang mga love life,
Sana all may jowa.
nakasense na gani mo og kwan, magdili na lagi ni siya maayo halapan sa aking thermometer. Para makabalo ka kay magbulag na ta. Okay, nag-ice cold na ka.
Di na ma'am, kaya di na akong padulong tanan.
Why forever, aw.
Huwag na ma'am.
Okay.
Nga di na.
So, in the Philippines, our unit for temperature is Celsius. While in US or other countries, they use Fahrenheit. But for the science, we stick to Kelvin. So most of the time, Kelvin ginagamit sa science, dili degree Celsius. Dili ra gina sa Pilipinas si degree Celsius abunda kayo. Next, we have the amount of gas. We call it as the Avogadro's number. The Avogadro's number has a value which we know later. So the number of gas particles inside the container is what we call the Avogadro's number. So later on, we will know the relationships. So standard temperature and pressure. So we call it the STP. So when we say STP or standard temperature and pressure, in most of kanang calculations or in most of kanang problem solving, they will not write the values, but they will just write example in standard temperature and pressure, what will happen to the number of particles if, or what will happen to pressure, or what will happen to the number of, or the volume if you increase the number of particles. So when you solve it, you will put in your mind always that the standard temperature has a value of 0 degrees Celsius, or that is 273 Kelvin. And the standard pressure has a value of 1 atm. So kung makita gani kag STP nga letter or standard temperature and pressure, it always has this value. Dili ni ginasulat sa problem, ang ginabutang niya is kanara. So what I learned, you have to explain why gases can be compressed. So kung yun nakitaan, gagmay na lang kay kung gipang butang nga explanation. That is because kapoy check. Oh. Dili siya kapoy check. Ang uban bitaw parihara man gud statement like kabalo kong iyo ron gipictura ng
Dili man si mama mag-check.
Hoy, nag-check no. Pariharag statement.
Question.
Gilantaw gid nako pag human.
Parehara link ikuhaan sa internet, ma'am.
Mo gid, ma'am.
Ay ko galanganon man ni siya. Hinuuna naman
Mugay nang ayo
Google.
na explain. Ma'am kay kaput
Dili man good na, magud na siya part sa module kasabaan ta ni kabaho.
Lagi ma'am, pero gamay ra ma'am.
Mananggigamay lang ako siya kay kuan man kanang sa tawag ani kabalo man ko nga. Lagi si Google. Nagpalaban ni sa Google. Maskin ako ay kabalaka, maskin ako nag-quiz biga Google pud ko. Sigala si Pampagha, grabe kataas ang discussion ni Riza. Google.
Dili gid siya modalag kon, dili Google gid.
Uy, congrats! Nakamata na si Ben. Hello, Ben. Nakamata na yun siya. Sa second part. Okay, you answer this. In this part, the pressure of the air in a car tire increases if the air sits for some time in direct sunlight. So you have to express or you have to explain why it happens using the concept in the kinetic molecular theory. And this one, you just have to pick which of the following is the path of gas molecules. And then you explain why you choose that. Why you choose A, B, C, D, or E. Then you have to solve the problem using this conversion factor. Kung kanara siya kung gipakuan kay kabalo man kung kabalo na mo aning temperature, kanilang siya kay di man gud kay nato ginagamit ang pressure. Unang kana kung gipa-solve. Then additional activity will be online. So maghatag ko activity online. Okay, let's go to lesson 2 because we have to have 2 lessons today.
Hello.
Yes. So So picture analysis, you answer this. Based on the picture, you have to say about the relationship of pressure and...
I-post yan po rin mo, ma'am.
Ha?
I-post yan po rin mo sa YouTube, ma'am.
Of course.
Putol-putol man, ma'am, eh.
I-post din siya na ako. Para
good.
Kasi nabot kita.
Thank you.
Kay, we have both the asynchronous and the synchronous. Para mas masabta ninyo. Kaya basin karon na, okay ra kayo mo pagkatotoo ay sa ganito. Oh, di ba? That's why that may purpose na kung ano mag-time ta para kung na may pangutana, makapangutana mo agad kay basin niyo ang concern pud sa uban. Kabay kay ang chat nga isa bitaw kay mo ansiran din ni chat pud ang isa parihar ang problema ha. Kapoy kaayo gyud.
PM pa dyan.
Oh, ga-PM pag yun. Libutan lang to si para isa na pag-answer pa. Dili ba man kay dili maglantaw bitaw dili mag-backread. Diretso na nagba mo sa ito mo gyud, estudyante gyud. So based on the picture, you have to explain the relationship of pressure and volume. So based on this particular picture, what do you think Boyle's law is about?
The relationship of
Volume and pressure.
Very
volume
good.
and
So
pressure.
Boyle's law is a law. So meaning tinuod na gini siya kadi man siya theory, di ba? We have different stages of facts. We have the postulate, then we have the theory, and then we have the
Law.
the law. So postulates are just assumptions or theory hypotheses that are not yet tested. But if they are tested, they are called theories. And if they are proven true, then they are law. So when we talk about law, it means what we're talking about the fact. Now, Boyle's law is also known as the volume pressure relationship, which is formulated by Robert Boyle, a British chemist, in 1662. It states that the volume of fixed quantity of gas, so when we say fixed quantity of gas, the same number of particles or the particles didn't change. Wala kay gikuha nga number of gases, wala kay giduga nga number of gases. Is inversely proportional to the pressure. So, I do not know, ako sa daong lantawon. Na ako'y gustong ipakita sa Adjust lang ha.
Okay, ma'am.
YouTube sa ako para mas makita ninyo siya. Na. Boyle law syringe. Siguro nakahimo na uban ani sa kwan sa marshmallow. Have you still remember the marshmallow? Kinsay nakaagi sa grade 9 ani? Kinsay nakaagi sa mga kamot sa grade 9 siguro nakahimo na ta ani.
Wala, nakahimo naman.
Taman mo.
Wala ta
Syringe man yung example.
Katalagi si syringe.
Oo, nagigatong kapag na ay nakatuli. Naana.
Ako share ha.
Kaya kapag ibong i-push ang syringe, basta.
So,
Ko
you listen.
No, so ano ni?
Hindi niyo makita?
Ma'am, wala
Walay audio, ma'am. Walay audio.
Walay?
Wala
Audio.
Dili na mo ma-promote ang
It's okay with the audio.
audio.
It's okay with the audio because you don't need to listen. You have to watch.
Yes, ma'am.
So you watch how the marshmallow interact. So yang gingon is yang gibutang ang marshmallow sa syringe. And then i-cover niya ang tip and then birahon niya ang lever. So the purpose of closing the tip here is para walay gas particles nga makasulod or makagawas. So about to bira the syringe na siya. So ihagi na close para ang plunger iyang i-push or i-pull walay maka. So you have to watch what happened to the marshmallow.
Lag, ma'am, lag.
Naglag. So, kinsay
Putol,
nakakita.
putol.
What do you think happened to the marshmallow?
Nakiyos, ma'am.
Very good, Nikius.
Nag-shrink.
So, compare to iyang gibirang plunger. What happened when
Nag-freeze.
iyang what happened kung pull backward? What
Nag-gain
happened to
siya
the
o
marshmallow?
Ibalik siya sa iyang
Pan,
pan.
si marshmallow.
pan.
Okay. So, with that, ako na siyang tanggalan kay mura na siya kung purpose. With that, what do you think is the relationship of pressure and volume based on the marshmallow thing? Diba
The
pag
more
ato,
pressure, the lower the volume.
okay.
They're
So,
inversely
diba,
proportional.
kung ato siyang ikuan, ato siyang imaginon, kani siya dire, mo ni siya ang plunger. Kung iyahan ni siyang itulod pasulod, and then nakay marshmallow dire, imagine na, these particles bumps on the wall of the marshmallow, di ba? So,
Yes,
kabalo man
ma'am.
ta, dili solid ang marshmallow. Kung kay siya kanang murag flowy kay siya, kung imo siya itulod, pwede siyang move. So, motong ni-shrink siya because the air surrounds the marshmallow, pushes the walls of the marshmallow toward the center. Kaya mga air diri, nag-push padulong diri, ang mga air diri, padulong po dira, nagbangga-bangga naman sila. So, tungod, kay gigamay nimo ang iyahang volume, para mo na nahitabo. Kay gigamay man nimo ang iyang volume, so gamay na lang iyang malaag-laagan. So, mas frequent siya nga mag-push dito sa surface. So, if frequent ang iyang collision sa surface, that means that the surface is under more pressure. So, if the volume decreases, the pressure increases. That if the volume increases, the pressure also, the pressure decreases.
Decreases.
So, mo na siya pasabot sa tawag na to inversely proportional. Inversely, baliktad. So, if volume increase, pressure decrease. If pressure increase, volume decrease. So, kung sa'yo mahitabo sa isa, opposite ang mahitabo sa isa. That is what we meant by the word proportional, inversely proportional. So, this formula implies that if the volume increases, the pressure decreases. But the proportionality sign cannot be used to solve the problem. So, we use a constant. The constant is the relationship of the volume and the pressure. So, say for example, di ba kaganina, kani mo itong standard, wala na itong gihilabtan. Mo ni iyahang standard nga panghitabo or preliminary nga panghitabo. What if imo siyang hilabtan? Mo nang naana kay case 1 o case 2. So, naana kay duha ka sets of pangyayari. So, in the first case, you have the relationship of your volume and pressure. When we say constant, mag-change ba na?
Dili, ma'am.
Dili. So, that means this constant and this constant are equal. The constant in case 2 and the constant in case 1 are just equal. Okay, constant good. So when we say constant is equal to constant, it also means that your relationship of pressure and volume in the first case is equal to the relationship of the volume for the second case. Kaya pareha naman sila. Walay change. So say for the purpose why we have the first case and the second case is just to compare if there is really an increase or decrease of any of its properties. Or it could be either the pressure increases or the volume increases or there's a decrease in the pressure or decrease in the volume. Mo na kay case 1 and case 2. In times nga imong i-change ang isa ka property. So say for example, a gas occupies 12.3 liters at a pressure of 40.0 millimeter mercury. What is the volume then when the pressure is increased to 40.0 millimeter mercury. So first step is to identify the given. So kung mag-solve mo po sa inyong problem, always start with the given. And then you have your P1, your V1, P2, V2. Yung anak, pagkasulat ha, kay apil na siya sa points. And then, di ba we have this as our general formula?
Ma'am,
We have
Ma'am,
to
natawag
derive. Ha?
Ma'am, diri sa imong given, ma'am, ang pressure 2 is 60. Ang naa diri sa kuan kay 40.
Hala, akong giusab. Ay, wala ni siya
Sa
na usab.
sentence,
Palihog ko og usab ani og 60. Kani siya may
yes, ma'am.
60 ang sample problem. Ganun wala man siya na save. Diri siya 60 ay, diri na ko wala na save.
Dapat 60 sa problem.
Yes, i-copy magunin ako siya kay gikatapulan ko sulat sa MMHG. So wala na ko na-listen si 6. Si 4 there, wala ko na-listen og 6. So, first step is to identify the given so that we will know how to manipulate our formula. So our formula is P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. Mauni siya, di ba? Next. Atong pangitaon si V2. So dapat ang mabilin diri nga side si V2 lang. Unsaon nato pagbalhin ni P2 diri nga side? So para mabalhin si P2 diri nga side, both sides will be divided by P2. Para ma-delete si P2 diri nga side, ma-transfer siya diri. Aron ang mabilin diri ang unknown value lang. So, dapat ay isa ka side, ang imong mabilin is unknown value. So, kaya ato man ang i-crash out si P2 dira, ang nabilin na lang si V2. So, kay si V2 man na din nga side, dapat pag mag-solve ta, lisod po na diri ang unknown. So, dapat ibaylo na to sila. So, this is our final formula. So, we call it our working formula. This is the formula. This is the formula. Again, this is the formula. This is what we call our working formula. So, we will use this to solve the problem. Munang gitawag siya working formula. Next. After determining the working formula, we do our solution. So we have V2 is equal to P1 V1 over P2. So we plunge in the values or plug in the values. P1 is, go back to our given, 40.0 millimeter mercury. Our volume 1 is 12.3 liters. Our volume 2 is, our pressure 2 is 60.0 millimeter mercury. Then, crash out the millimeter mercury, kaya parehas sila. We are left with liter as our unit. And then, as the law for solving fractions, we multiply numerators to numerators, denominators to denominators. So 40 times 12.3 is 492 liters divided by 60. So you have 8.2 liters. Always remember to express your final answer with the appropriate number of significant figures. Kung diri bitaw sa taas, ayaw sa mo pag-round off kung naapa mo buhatonod. Example, kani siya. Dayon, naapa ning sunod.
Ma'am, like sa calculator, ma'am, ana.
Oh, ayaw sa mo pag-round off. Dito na mo pag-round off sa inyong final nga answer. Kaya araw ma-express ninyo siya sa same number of significant. Kung add, ang pinakadaghan nga, addition and subtraction ang inyo i-consider pinakadaghan nga decimal points, while for multiplication and division you consider the least number of significant figures. Nasabtan? So since we use multiplication and division, that's why we consider the number of significant figures. So in here, uniform sila, 3 significant figures. So our final answer also must have 3 significant figures. So you do the what I have learned, and you do the what I can do. So that would be all for this meeting. Any questions?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Wala na yung
Wala, ma'am.
questions?
Wala, ma'am.
Since wala na may questions, thank you for participating. Please answer your module.
What I can do, ma'am.
Ha?
Convert to sa what I can do, ma'am.
Nga
Kanang
naman.
cubic foot ba? Ibog
Oh.
na, ma'am.
Wala mo kailang cubic foot?
Sawa na, ma'am. Doon mong ganda.
FT3.
53.
FT3 sa taas. Ano ang pagsulat?
Nasa exponent ka 3.
Oh.
Walang
Mura
yan
nag mura nag
Ano
meter
dira mo ko?
cube.
Ano ang sa pagsulat? Oh.
Lesson 1, lesson 2 ang ansiran, ma'am, no?
Yes.
I-convert mo na sa meter, ma'am.
Example 3 cubic feet. Oh, so FT and then ay 3 nga exponent sa
Ma'am,
imabaw.
ang pag-solve nun ba?
Oh. Nga naman sa pag-solve.
Wala may yatag nga kaan good. Sige na, pressure.
Wala
Conversion factor.
Nga conversion factor. Wala man siguro i-convert dira. Wala man may i-convert din ha.
May pressure nga yatag isa-isa. Duwang anon. Duwa ba anon?
Asa may duha ka unknown din ha. Tara man ha.
Ma'am.
Ah, yes.
Kanang if ever ma'am, back of
Yara,
the
sa
page.
linyata.
Ay,
Ma'am.
duwa ang pressure dyan na standard pressure.
Basaha ug tarong ang problem.
STP.
Unsa na nga number yang gingon nga wala
Ma'am, sa yellow na ansiran, yellow
No.
card, yellow paper.
Yeah, ini answer sheet dai.
Na ay answer sheet akong gi-provide para dili ko
Ma'am,
magkabuyong-buyong og basa.
Amo lagi na
Okay.
ako. If ever ma'am nga, for example, kanang na-short na among paper diri ma'am ba, magkuha na lang
Kanya gi siya basi by dili man na siya ma-short kay gagmay ra man nagkuan o gagmay ra man na siya.
Ma'am,
Puro
wala
ba
lagi
kay
ko
kung
budget,
agi?
ma'am.
So you have to budget your agi. Pila ra gud na divide nimo og duha ka kwan, i-divide nimo og upat ka space, upat gud na.
Dali di ay.
Bahina na daan, pod. Bahina
Ay,
na
physics,
ko gagmay agi.
Ayaw pod gagmatuya kayo kani man gani dagko man gani ni nasigo man gani sa isa ka area.
Ma'am, ayaw dyan pagabnaya, ma'am. Kaya hindi ko kaklarwa na.
So mo ganing kwan, mo ganing dila ra sa kwan. Walay magamit og
Walibat.
extra paper ha. Ang magamit og
Wali-
extra paper dili chikan.
Karo po kabalong, ha?
Ilan si Mana may buklat.
Na mo na dira. So again, use the answer sheet. You answer lesson 1 and lesson 2 for kanang next meeting. Di ba mag-answer mo dapat next meeting? Pero since we lack of time, we have to discuss lesson 3 and lesson 4. Tapos, the next meeting, you will have lesson 5. Itaas-taas ang lesson 5.
Naglimog ko ma'am, mag-answer may next meeting o mag-discuss ta?
Mag-answer lang sa amo karon kay na short naman ta sa time kay man ta nagklase last week. So kay na short ta
Holiday
sa
magod
time.
last week.
Oh,
Holiday.
nag-holiday man ta last week eh. Wala may internet, wala may kuwan, plus kagahapon na pa kita nakaklase.
Baha.
Oh,
Ma'am, daghan na og nabahaan, ma'am.
mo na siya nga
Wala lang.
ato ang budgeton karon atong oras. So mag-answer mo, mag-discuss ta. Magklase ta every 9 o'clock or 10.
Laway, tulog pa ko.
Muna mo matakag sa'yo, Ben. Kaganina, first nga lesson, wala ka tulog ka. So, goodbye,
Ma'am.
everyone. Yes.
Ma'am,
Hmm.
di ba na ay kuan diri lesson 3 diri sa answer sheet. So, tantango naman ang kuan, stipler.
Ayaw
Dito
na
na yung stapler, day.
tagtanga. Ayaw na natagtanga. Unya na, pwede maka mag-answer sa lesson.
Ay, dungan na sila.
Dungan man nag-pass. Kay duha man ka week. Next week pa man mo pass. Di man karon.
Okay.
Ay, next week pa lagi. So, igupon. Mahumantaan na tanan nga lesson, day. Mapas na naman.
Kato, taman, ma'am. Taman, lesson 5, ansiran, ma'am.
Wala pa, lesson 2 pa lang. Lesson 2
Lagi,
pa nga
ma'am.
ito
Pero
na-discuss.
ang ipas
Yes,
next
tama,
week, ma'am,
lesson
ba?
5.
Ayos,
Common
ma'am.
lesson
Sige, ma'am.
5. Muna magklase sa
Wow.
taas. Pag-answer mo pag na may vacant. Ha, dali
Kung
naman
wala,
ang
ma'am.
tira. Kung wala,
Wala man.
wala may mapas. So that would be all. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Ako na
Bago pa
stop ang
tumata.
recording. Goodbye.